Good morning, I am Chester Sambrano and this is Headline News on CNC3 and the TBC Radio Network. Opposition leader Dr. Keith Rowley will hold discussions this afternoon with several key groups including the Joint Trade Union Movement and non-governmental organizations who have also been lobbying for the dismissal of Attorney General Anna Ramlogan in light of the Section 34 fiasco.
But before that, before I go to the General Council, I will lead a team to meet with these citizens who lead important organizations in this country. I will be there on Friday at 4 o'clock.
Among those who will participate in the talks is former partnership member, MSJ leader David Abdullah. Former National Security Minister Brigadier John Sandy has been appointed as ambassador to the United Nations in Geneva. Brigadier Sandy replaces former ambassador Therese Baptiste Cornelis as ambassador to the United Nations. Baptiste Cornelis exited the post on the heels of some controversial comments made while making her first address at an international symposium. Brigadier Sandy is expected to take up his appointment in a few weeks' time. UDCOT has taken legal action against its former Chief Operating Officer, Nilanda Rampal, and 3 other executives, including former Executive Chairman Calder Hart. The suit, which was filed in the High Court on Wednesday, alleges that Rampal, Krishna Bahadur Singh, Ricardo O'Brien, and former Chairman Calder Hart breached their duties to exercise skill, care, and diligence in the management of affairs of UDCOT. This claim takes into account the handling of the contract to Hafiz Karamath and the construction of the Brian Lara Stadium and tender for the Customs and Excise building. The legal action also hopes to recover just over $65 million of UDCOT funds not accounted for in the projects. The legal action was filed by Justice Minister Christlyn Moore before she took the oath of office as the new minister. Local Government Minister Dr. Suraj Rambachan says the state did not pay for the 1-hour political broadcast on Wednesday evening carried on all television stations.
No state funds are being used for those programs. That's a party program, and it is a program that will be funded by the party every Wednesday night on CNMG, and depending on the response of the other stations, we are prepared to also put it on the other stations. We are a political organization, and we are always planning for the future. This was planned long before the PNM meeting last night, and in fact it is something that we have launched in different ways. And what we did last night was decide that we are now going to go on the airwaves. It will also go on the radio, and there will be also a follow-up through the newspapers. So it is not something that is any reaction to the PNM.
Minister Rambachan says it was all 4 parties which make up the partnership, the Congress of the People, the UNC, the TOP, and NJAC, which contributed to the event. But Congress of the People officials tell CNC3 News they did not partially fund the event, nor did they authorize anyone to appear. The Congress minister on the panel was Sports Minister Anil Roberts. Stay with us. We'll have another news update at the top of the hour, and our major newscast is at 7 this evening, right here on CNC3 and the TBC Radio Network.
Welcome back. I am Goldalee Bruce, sitting in for Hema Ramkisoon on this morning, on the early morning show. We're about to talk to Alan Balfour. He's an entomologist attached to the Ministry of Food Production, and he's here to tell us why the Ministry of Food Production urgently needs the help of residents in the Western Valley, where the giant African snail is concerned. So first of all, perhaps you can give us an update on the situation. I know that a lot of people see the advertisements and see the public relations campaign, and they're not exactly sure as to what the threats of the giant African snail are, right, and how it relates to them personally. And they probably don't even know how to tell the difference between the giant African snail and a regular old snail doing his thing in your yard.
A Trinity snail.
Yeah, a Trinity snail.
Yes, well, thank you for having us on the program. The giant African snail is what we call an alien invasive species. It's not native to Trinidad and Tobago, but it came into the country accidentally, or however, in 2008. Since then, because of the nature of the snail, it multiplies very fast. It can consume over 500 species of plant life. And it also potentially has a threat to spread a disease or a parasite called the rat lungworm that can cause eosinophilic meningitis to humans. So there's the agricultural threat, and there's also the health threat. Now, to date, we haven't found that parasite within these samples that we've tested. So that what we have now is a condition where in the Diego Martin area, it was first found in Alice Glen, and in Diego Martin area, it spread from Blue Range all the way down to Westmorans. And we have lots of snails multiplying, posing a threat to agriculture, defacing property, that sort of thing, and can really influence our trade. Presently, it's what we call a notifiable pest. So by law, you're required to report it whenever you see it. It's a serious thing that we are dealing with here. And the Ministry of Food Production, since then, since its introduction, has been working to eradicate it. Now, it's contained in the Diego Martin Valley. The valley is bordered by the seas and the mountains, so it's a good topographical area for it to be contained. However, it can move out by man's intervention mainly. So our campaign has been asking the residents especially to really try to cooperate by not moving plant material or soil material out of the Diego Martin Valley. If you see the snail or what you think the snail is, please call us on our hotline, 646-6284. And majorly they've been cooperating, and we really want to thank the residents of all the areas that has been affected.
All right, so first of all, when you talked about the specific parasite...
That's right.
I know that a lot of eyebrows were raised because how is that parasite spread, and how do we contract the parasite, if that is the right way to say it?
Yes, great question. Mainly it's by touching. We ask people not to handle the snail because the parasite could be in the slime, so that if it is somebody handles the snail or the slime of the snail, the trail that it may have left after it maneuvers, and then you have an open wound, or you touch your mouth, like, children will be in the yard playing and then they touch their mouth. If it's ingested, and the parasite is in the slime, then you can contract it that way.
Is it deadly?
It is the meningitis that it causes. It can be deadly, but I'm not a health expert. From the literature, it says that you get severe headaches, it can attack your brain, and in few cases it can cause death.
Okay, so you are calling on the residents of the Western Peninsula, specifically, well, the Diego Martin Valley, to help, not to restrict the movement of the migration of these snails.
That's right.
And keep them confined in Diego Martin. So how would we, as human beings living in the West, help to move them out? Okay. What do? We move sand, we move plants. If
That's
you could
right.
just outline that clearly.
Let me present a scenario to you. We found it in Alice Glen, okay? The rains came and washed it down to Lower Pity Valley, so we have no control over that, that's nature. But then Auntie Ina takes a plant from there with a small tiny shell to Blue Range, and then boom, in 2 weeks we have a 300 in one household. Wow. And then it can spread to other households easily that way. So that I know it's difficult, but we're asking residents, if you know it's in your area, and we have listed the areas that it has been in right now, check your yards. If you see the snail, we've been putting the pictures up of the snail. The stripe is dark brown and cream together. It can be tiny or large as a fist, right? They start off small and they grow very large. If you see the snail, call us at the hotline and we'll check. Additionally, if you think if you had the snail in your yard, just every now and then check, like under your car and stuff, you're going out of the area and that sort of thing. And most importantly, don't move soil or sand if you're doing work in your yard out of the Diego Martin area without us really checking first.
So have people been responding to that call, and what has the response of the ministry been like?
Well, through the hotline, we have been really getting a lot of calls, especially in relation to how we do our public relations. And as soon as you call, we are mandated to go and check, especially the Diego Martin area, by the next day. We give ourselves a 2-day maximum to respond to the hotline calls. And once we go there and we discover that it is the giant African snail, we ask people to keep it alive in a container or bucket, just cover it.
So we have to touch it?
Well, no. But if you have to handle it with a plastic bag.
Okay.
put your hand in a plastic bag, inside out, and pull if you're brave enough to do that. If not, I know some people are squirmy about it, you just put a bucket or a tin over it and keep it there. Because we want to diagnose if it is the snail, because some snails can look like it.
Well, I've spoken to a couple of people, because I live in the West as well, about this in particular, and they are now killing every single snail that they see. But there are other species of snails that are doing, that are serving a purpose in the ecology of our valley.
Yes.
And it may not actually be fair.
That's right,
or a good thing.
Yeah, that's why we're asking people to try their best to really not crush the snails or kill them, because you may be killing out our local snails. And the giant African snail is very prolific, so it can outpopulate our local snails very easily, and we don't want to change the fauna of our ecology, as you mentioned.
So what are some of the negative impacts that the giant African snail has on our agriculture? We talked about health.
Yes. On our agriculture, it can feed on over 500 species of different plants. So we're talking about agricultural plants such as cocoa, pawpaw, lettuce, so some of those vegetable crops and that sort of thing. Lots of different. It's very, very polyphagous.
So it really has the propensity to devastate.
To devastate. Luckily for us, it hasn't been found in agricultural areas yet. And it also likes a lot of calcium, so it will stay in residential areas where there's concrete and that sort of thing. For it to absorb the calcium helps build the shell. So you find that it is isolated to a lot of areas where there's refuge, garbage and cut grass underneath, things like that. So it hasn't really moved out into purely agricultural areas.
And it's also nocturnal.
And it's nocturnal. Very good, yes. So that if you want to really check, you check around in the evening time into the night, yeah.
Thank you so much, Mr. Balfour. Alan Balfour, he's an entomologist attached to the Ministry of Food Production, urgently asking for the assistance of residents in Western Trinidad not to aid the spread of the giant African snail throughout the country because of its devastating effects that it can have on our health as well as on our agricultural sector. Thank you so much, Mr. Balfour. When we come back, we have much more of the early morning show for you.